group of friends play, review, and share about all things board games. Sitting around the table today are
Reed.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Gillian.
And I'm Angela. Today we're looking at Molly House, aka one of us is getting hanged for sodomy, and boy is that going to be a good time. But first, what's bringing you joy?
My joy is the Grok Edition of Haggis. I love Haggis so much, and when I saw Grok, I knew that I had to have it, and so I'm really glad that it came out on Portland Game Collective. I really like the art style, and there weren't a ton of pictures of it before we ordered it, but I like how bright the colors are, and the cards are smaller, which is kind of fun, but I don't know, there's just something about the little animals and the bunnies. I just like them a lot.
You opened this game in front of me, and as I was sitting there looking at it, I immediately ordered it, which I'm not that person. And I love the artwork of this so much. I really like the gameplay of Haggis, but the Portland Game Collective version isn't one that I would be necessarily drawn to by the art, and this solves that for me. I'm excited to play the game with this version.
It was supposed to be my pub copy, but Gillian's like, no, it's too rare and harder to get, which is valid.
Is the Grok edition harder to get than the other edition?
Yeah, because it's a Brazilian publisher and they imported it from Brazil, and it was actually delivered before the tariffs went into effect. And so they actually got advanced copies before it was even released. And they got very few copies of that plus the other games, and they have no idea if they're going to get more. So
It's my house copy.
Look, I'm here for the other edition. I love that you two love the Grok edition. It does not resonate with me as much. I love the cover a lot, but the interior is not for me. But I do frickin' love Haggis, I gotta say.
I'm with Angela. I think I prefer the Portland Game Collective version. I just love the Saibapu art, and the numbers are crisp, and yeah, I actually do like the larger cards. I didn't initially, but I do like them.
Yeah, I have a thing about card size, and I was like, actually, I kind of am vibing with the large card.
It's funny because I actually bought the Portland Game Collective version of this a couple weeks ago when I went to Portland, and I went to Guardian Games and then saw the local shelf, and I was like, oh, there's Haggis, I should get it. And then after that I saw this, so now I have 2 copies of Haggis. So I have an office copy at this point, which doesn't work because you need 3 people in.
No, 2 people.
Yeah, there's a
You can
two-player
There's a
version.
2-player version.
Oh.
Yeah, but I do love that you were like, I'm not the type of person to just buy a game
And then
on
I
a whim.
bought 2 copies of this game.
You're like, anyway.
Anyway.
2 things are true at one time.
Yeah.
The game that's bringing me joy is weird. This is going to be a callback. Is Apiary?
Ooh.
Yeah, is that weird? We're just playing it on BGA enough. I think it's what we talked about from the last pod, which is sometimes just playing a game enough online starts to put in, it solidifies rules. You can see the board better. You can see resources or what's going on. So I've been having a really great time with Apiary and White Castle on BGA, and it really, certainly Apiary makes me want to get it back to the table because it hasn't been here for a while, and I really love the expansion. So just totally vibing with them space bees.
You saying it is your joy game makes me want to play it. And I know I'm the one out of the 4 of us who's been the most resistant about it, but
Yeah.
I do like the expansion, and I feel like you're hyping me up.
Yeah, and I feel like you are always open to, even if you don't love a game, you're like, I'll play that once a year. So it just might be that time. It has cometh.
She never said Apiary got that bad for her.
I didn't know you were anti-space bee until this moment.
She hates animals, remember?
That's true.
I mean, I think it was our very first podcast episode, Reed. I don't know if you've listened back that far recently.
I have, but I don't remember you being like anti-space bee.
Don't worry.
She was anti-2-player Space Bee.
It was too nice. The bumping
Yeah,
is
the
too
friendly
nice.
bumping.
Yeah.
Boo.
Becky is anti-friendly bumping. A
Galactic
la Galactic Cruise.
Yeah.
We didn't know back at Pod 1 that she was so angry, but now we know more about Becky, and our sound has improved 3% from that first episode for sure.
Maybe
Okay.
like 6%.
Yeah. It's probably double digits.
Content has gone down. Sound quality has gone up.
But she is not wrong. It's true.
Wait, now I need to listen to those episodes.
My joy game, Angela was very, very thoughtful and got Gillian and I both the same birthday present. Our birthday is 2 days apart, and we each got a copy of Twinkle Starship, which is a trick-taking game that incorporates these little, I don't know, like little metal or wooden matchstick type things. And you play different tricks, and you can manipulate the numbers by making these little, I'll call them matchsticks, change the number of the cards like a 1980s digital clock. And it is so fun and brings me back to like, you know, being awake at night. Maybe I've always not slept very well, but being awake at night and looking at a digital clock and the different line segments. And so it's just fun to have a game built around there. And one of the things that I really like about this game, and we've played a couple other recently, is that you have to be strategic about your bid of how many tricks you're going to take, and it needs to match with your leftover line segments. And that is such a fun depth of play that I enjoyed. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because you don't even bid at the beginning. It's just like you only score if by the end of the trick-taking round, number of tricks you've won equal the number of unused segments that you have left. And so they're definitely towards the end, you're like, oh, I didn't win as many as I thought. I need to just start using these segments to deplete it so that it matches the 2 tricks I've won throughout the game. And so, yeah, I very much enjoyed it too. I will say I didn't know much about it. I do remember talking about it, or you and Reed talking about it. And so, yeah, I didn't know what to expect going into it, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry because when I found it, I was like, holy crud, I can't believe I found this game. And Reed had really vibed with the like aesthetic and the gameplay, but I knew Gillian would really vibe with the fact that it was like a rare trick taker. And so that's why I'm sorry, is because the game is very, 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 very hard to find, like most Japanese trick takers can be. And so I was really lucky that I contacted the person who sold it to me to see if they had another one, and they did. So I was also very lazy, being like, you like the aesthetic and you like the rareness, and I didn't know who I was giving it to. So the answer is both. Two things
I was going to say, I'm sorry, this is gross. That was very thoughtful.
Oh, yeah, that's disgusting. No, thank you.
Boo.
I will say, to your point about it being rare, this version is rare, but Gamehead publishing company is supposedly working on republishing it under a different name and theme. And so that will hopefully kind of maintain the gameplay overall. But it's, from what I understand, Back to the Future-esque themed.
Oh,
I
So-
love that. I'm like
excited.
88 miles per hour.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm so excited.
So we'll see how that ends up, and if it ends up coming to fruition.
I mean, we're totally going to buy that copy as well. That's when I'll get my copy because it's too expensive to buy now.
Kind of segueing from Reed, my joy game, or what's bringing me joy right now, is another birthday gift I got, this time from Reed. I got it like 2 or 3 months early. There's another trick-taking game, that's Nokosu Dice. Nokosu Dice has been, I think, has been kind of a white whale for me for a long time, on and off. Like last year, I remember talking about Nokosu Dice for my birthday, and then I think Angela's maybe looking at it at that point, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to that, because it's hard to get. It's still hard to get even now. But Reed gifted it to me for my birthday, and we played it on my birthday, actually, and it was a ton of fun. It was probably one of the lengthiest trick-taking games we've played so far. It took about an hour to play a single kind of game of it, but it was really fascinating how you drafted dice to basically augment your hand, and so the dice you draft are also kind of in your hand, and you're really trying to kind of leverage those to win tricks and all that stuff. And yeah, I really enjoyed that game.
I loved it how you could play your whole game, and then you have to have at least one die left to be able to determine how many tricks that you win. And it has to match the pips on the die. And you could think that you're doing really well, and up to that point, you have to play a color, and it is the one die that you don't want to play, so you're left with something that doesn't let you score points.
Yeah, I love that forcing of the hand because the dice act as cards in your hand and it's a must-follow game. If somebody's on green and you happen to have a green dice left, but you're really holding on to that because you want to make 3 tricks, and you stupidly have held on to your 6 red, if a green comes up and you don't have any greens in your hand, you have to play the dice. And you're like, no! And there was a time or two where I was like, well, I've made poor choices. And so it makes me rethink things differently, and I'm really vibing with this because I'm not very good at it. Can you make a bid? And then also they're like, but what if your bid was harder? No. And so that's what a lot of these games are.
So fun.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about a while ago, which I didn't realize, and this was before we had played as many trick-taking games and variations of trick-taking games, is that I said that one of my favorite mechanics is bidding, and I think that that comes from my roots in playing spades and just this, like, do you go under? Do you try and have trick avoidance? What do you do? And can you tank other people? I think Gillian bid 0 in a game of Nokosu Dice, and then I think I also tried to bid 0.
And then the very first trick we busted.
That was so bad. But I love having this familiarity of a mechanism and feeling like, oh, I understand how that works. It might play out differently in each game, but it is something that makes the game a lot more approachable to me and really joyful. And I thought that Nokosu, the depth of play that you had in that game was so good.
Is that game also Saibepu art?
Yes, it is Saibepu art.
My God, what game does Saibepu not do? Why is she the most wonderful
Cyclades
human?
Legendary Edition.
I was going to say Molly House.
This is now a Saibepu podcast.
This is now a Saibepu podcast. Her next thing is a Paul Denon game that she's designing. Oh,
Wow, what a mashup.
all of my favorite games together.
You should send them both an email.
They should just come to my house and hang out and be my best friends.
Can we be invited?
No.
Oh.
Podcast over. Podcast over.
Yeah, it just ends.
Welcome to the last episode.
Molly House, published in 2025, plays 1 to 5 players. It's designed by Joe Kelly and Cole Wehrle. The art is by Rachel Ford, and it's published by Wehrlegig Games. It retails for $74.99. In the early 18th century, London was rapidly becoming one of the largest cities in Europe. Vibrant discussions about new ways of living were being hosted at coffee houses across the city. And in the back rooms of certain establishments, a community was being born. This was the thriving underground world of the Mollies, pioneering explorers of gender and sexuality who built a community during this period of possibility and change. Bawdy songs rang out as bedecked Mollies engaged in masquerades. The nights were filled with unsanctioned weddings and gin-soaked christenings. Molly House celebrates this community by inviting players to take the roles of these Mollies as they navigate their desires and dodge the watchful eyes of the society for the Reformation of Manners. Boo Hiss, a citizen group that sought to stamp out any behavior it deemed deviant. During the game, players try to accumulate joy by throwing and participating in festivities. In preparation, they move around the board to collect vice cards to play at these festivities. Certain sites on the board let players use cards in their hands to build their reputations, which can improve later actions, but also exposes them to risk. Other sites, the shops, offer items that provide a variety of benefits. At festivities, players will also score joy for the community. This is a crucial element of the game. In order for the community to survive, players must help the community pass its joy threshold by collaborating to throw the most magnificent festivities. Of course, this collaboration comes at a price. Staging festivities and taking some actions will gradually increase the size of the gossip pile. Each week, this pile will be inspected, possibly generating evidence against the houses. With enough evidence, the society will raid a Molly house and indict those players with the highest reputation there. If sufficient evidence is generated over the course of the game, the wider community will be fully infiltrated, ending the game and leaving only those who successfully betrayed the community eligible to win. In essence, Molly House is kind of a roll and move game. You move around the board, kind of like old school Monopoly, collecting things as you go, like cards or things at the shops. You collect these cards, which you'll then play at festivities, which you kind of do in a sequential pattern. So if you play, say, a queen with 3 cards of increasing amounts, that will score a certain point. But if you were to score it with a jack, which is a different type of Molly, and there are 3 of a kind, it'll score at a different level. There's constables and rogues, which are also cards that come into play. And these cards are not great because the more that you score the festivity, these constables go into your gossip pile. And so throwing festivities is the other part of this game. It's roll and move, but it's also playing cards in a hand as players go around in a circle, deciding if they want to add to somebody else's festivity or if they deem that it's not really worth it, that party's kind of a loser, and so they're not going to play and participate, potentially gaining points or potentially not gaining too much of a reputation. This game also has a hidden traitor mechanism, and it goes along very thematically because as you go along collecting more reputation, which is good and bad, you also become known as kind of a hussy, making your way down the streets, gallivanting around with your gin and your non-binary pals, and off you go. But the more the authorities suspect that you maybe are a little queer, they're more likely to give you some sort of punishment. And this could mean that you are hanged at the end of the game, which is negative points. And so a way that you can avoid this is by betraying your community and saying, actually, I have been selling evidence against you, and I really am hoping for the downfall of this community because at least I'll live and at least I'll survive. And at that point, you stop collecting joy and you only collect points. So it's really the betrayal of this tight-knit community that is kind of lingering and hanging over the players' heads. Joy is such an interesting concept in this game because it also means the community thriving or the community atrophying. And so while we're all out for our own, if the community doesn't reach a certain threshold, we all just atrophy and we lose the game, whether you were a traitor or not. It's kind of depressing. But if the community thrives and somebody is able to enjoy the most joy, then they'll be named the victor. Of course, if somebody has betrayed you and you are found guilty of indictments, minor and major indictments, you actually may have to roll a dice at the end of the game, which could lead to your immediate death. And so there's a lot of things going on that is very basic, but thematically tie into this larger narrative that is true to life of the game. And so that's a very rough understanding of how to play Molly House. It's kind of like if the game Monopoly had a baby with combo, but like in a much better way, but like full of joy and gin.
I do have a Gillian Corrections Corner comment.
Oh, God, always.
It's very important during the festivity. When you play a jack, you're trying to get 3 cards in sequential order. And if you play a queen, it's 3 desire cards of the same value because that's a little bit harder.
You don't come to this house, Becky, and tell me that I was backwards.
Okay, I mean, it was Gillian's Correction Corner. It wasn't Becky's Correction Corner. It was Gillian.
It's also your house.
Well, yes. This is Gillian's corner of the house.
Well, and there's also, we didn't talk about, and I think there's a surprise ball, which is even harder to get because then it's sequential and of the same suit. And
Yes.
so, and it's 4, not 3 cards. And that is very tough to do.
But very exciting.
Oh, when it happens, it is a surprise.
And speaking of exciting surprises, Angela made me change my joy because it was so good that I had to wait for later in the podcast. So my first real joy.
The one one that I made you take back and then redo,
Yes.
and then
Yeah. It is the Origin Stories Molly House, an interview with co-designer Joe Kelly by Talking Shelf Space Alex. This interview is so great. Joe Kelly shares their experience submitting the concept for Molly House to the Zenobia Award, which was both a game design competition for folks from underrepresented groups with a historical game idea, and also a mentoring program for those folks with established designers. And so Joe Kelly speaks to the design process during and after the award, working with Cole, and also everything they learned about queer history. It's absolutely worth the read if you're interested in game design, queer history, and learning some of the designer's hopes for how the game presents and also lands for people playing it.
I think it is really interesting to have a game that has so much history in it and feel that you learn a lot through a game and are learning something that you might not have otherwise heard these stories before. And paired with so much joy, it does. I felt the tension or the juxtaposition between having so much joy in this game and so much tragedy. But I learned about people and experiences that I didn't know before playing this game, and I really appreciated that.
I did think about this more after I read Joe talking about it, but I really enjoyed the historical aspect of it, but there also are a lot of gaps, and even talking about what are the actual desires and what happened during different parts of history and in the game. There isn't complete information about it, and that was very intentional because there's so many gaps in just how we understand that period of time and what was happening, but also the information that does exist was very biased against the Mollies. And so it just made sense to Joe to have those kind of gaps in there. And I find that super interesting.
Yeah, they acknowledge it at the back of the book when they talk about the design history, the dedication, but then they also acknowledge presentation and identity, certainly around what folks were called. So there's not much recorded dialogue from within the community. So the question of pronouns is hard to answer. And so that can also speak to queer culture, whether or not they used she as a way to indicate trans-like identity, both or neither, is only speculation. And I think that's kind of the thing about the interesting part of this game is this isn't necessarily talked about as often within it. And I love that a game about history brings forward some of those perspectives.
And I mean, throughout the game, we would look at a card and read the card and kind of talk about the card. And a lot of the cards were entertaining in and of themselves and celebratory of these people and showing that there was, obviously the downfall and demise of community was at that time. Like, that's the reality. And so some of the cards would showcase someone's history and death or imprisonment and that kind of thing. But then you have this joyful game where that, throughout you're trying to like throw these festivities and be in community with each other. So
Build that community happiness.
Well, I liked that at one point Gillian was like, oh, this card says they're going to take me to the privy. It's kind of lewd, but it also is like the text is actually from the trials that these Mollies were often hanged at or punished at, and found guilty of sodomy. And so all of it's like trial text. None of it's like made up or embellished or something like that. And I appreciate that because, you have this kind of like laugh about sodomy, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And it's like a point of the times. But I also appreciate that Joe talks at the back of the book when they're describing, the real historical implications of this game is that sodomy did not mean non-consensual, but it's like kind of what they called it. And so I just feel like there was a lot of intentionality, care in the historical representation from the game. It wasn't overblown. And I think that's a hard balance as a player, because this is a conversation we had, which was, does this game reflect a community in a way that you could maybe see it like, oh, we're laughing at it, or it's a joke that doesn't actually honor the people that were living this? Or is there, if you don't find yourself being a queer person and you're playing this game, what does that also kind of feel like? You're being asked to step into someone's shoes. I don't know. I think it brought up a lot more debate than I thought it would when we were playing.
Would you say it helped build our community around the table?
Gross, Becky.
Yeah, ew.
Boo. Nobel Prize over here.
Wait, no, but
Not good.
wait, but isn't that a good thing? I mean, I was thinking about that because after the second game, at the end, I was like, wow, actually, I think I feel really uncomfortable that the game is ending with, like, maybe we're going to get hanged. Like, that seems intense. I mean, I know history is intense, but I wasn't sure where that fits into a game, and is that okay to have in a game? I don't know. But just in this moment, listening to you talk about it and thinking about how much Reed appreciates the joy that comes from us playing the game, like, we are also building our, like, joy in our community while we're playing this game. So it feels like a lot of layers.
Wow, Becky, I laughed too early and
Right?
judged you.
Yes,
were
you
correct.
did.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was like, wow, that was rude of me. Actually, Reed started it, so that was rude of Reed.
We boo now, Becky.
We put now, boo, boo, Reed. Can't believe you didn't honor Becky's
And
really
Angela.
good thought.
This was our first Wehrlegig game, and so most of the games, if not all of the games that Wehrlegig makes, are kind of based in history in some way. And I think that's really a goal that Cole Wehrle and I believe his brother kind of set out to do, was to make a company that makes kind of these historical-based games. So Pax Pamir 2nd Edition is another. John's Company 2nd Edition is well-renowned as well. But this was the first Wehrlegig game I think any of us have played. And so it was a different beast, I would say, than any other game I've played, really. I didn't walk into it with kind of as much background as maybe Angela and Becky did in terms of reading kind of the kind of history of the background of the game. But I really kind of went into it just learning the mechanisms and playing it. And I enjoyed the game overall, but there was just something about it that I think wasn't as satisfying to me gameplay wise. And I will say, like, looking at the map, and the art aesthetic is not really to my taste. But the map itself, I remember looking at it initially, and I kind of chuckled, like, off the mic earlier when Angela brought up Monopoly, because the board to me was very reminiscent of Monopoly. It's just kind of this grid on the outside of the board that you kind of move along and, like, do these different actions in different spaces. But I think for me, the gameplay wasn't as satisfying as I was hoping out of this. The most satisfying aspect was kind of the card play, the combo element of it. Combo is another card game that we've played recently, and it's strange that Molly House, it really has that similar card play at the heart of it in terms of throwing a ball or a party. And that was kind of the most enjoyable aspect of it, because beyond that, you're just kind of going around the map, drawing a card or playing a card into your tableau to get kind of that reputation. And that was kind of it in a way beyond the parties. And so I felt like it wasn't as satisfying to me as I would have hoped.
The art in this game to me is so cohesive and looks really beautiful. The box looks like a book, looks like a book that you would find in an old library. And there's something about the illustrations also being really reminiscent of, like, old book illustrations, and the color choices that they have. I think it's really elegant. It's beautiful. It's one of those games that I would love to see decorating somewhere. And I think that it surprised me. I don't know what I was expecting with this game, but I wasn't expecting as much humor, as much fun. I wasn't expecting the pieces to be as just wonderful to look at. The board being Monopoly-esque, it doesn't feel like Monopoly when you're playing it. It does feel like you are going around I was going to say a circle grid. You're going around a rectangle, but it doesn't have any other feel to me of Monopoly. And I just think that kudos to the artwork on here.
Yeah, and I would say, like, kind of throwing the parties, going back to that, was my favorite aspect of it. And I think a lot of that really came from the people around the table and kind of the role playing that went along with it. Like, oh, I can throw a ball with a special guest of this notoriety. And then others like, I don't know if I believe in that. I think I'd rather throw this type of party. And so I thought that kind of role playing / hint giving that we played with was a lot of the joy that I got out of the game.
Which technically was a house rule. The book does say you can say exactly what you have in your hand. You can't show it, but you can say the exact number.
And you can lie.
You can lie. So I don't know if any of you lied, actually, but I did also really enjoy that.
I don't think we did. Yeah. I think it was, we tried when it was like, well, I have a 7. That wasn't nearly as, whimsical as being like, well, I have a very high guess, but not the highest guess that you could have. And then just kind of having that element of discourse, I think was...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what makes it better than both of the comparisons of Combo and Monopoly that I gave. In the style of Monopoly is like the most famous roll and move, I think. But to Reed's point, I love the art. You roll out, it seems so opulent. You roll out this thing for the middle of the board that just helps you pick up the cards, right? There's like a little mini beautifully colored neoprene mat that matches the cover of the box cover, and you're like, oh, it just feels fancy. And sometimes you would throw a fancy party, and I enjoyed, to what Gillian said, I enjoyed that narrative back and forth. Oh, I'm throwing a fancy... I'd love to throw a surprise ball if anybody is here, and then it's like womp womp when you turn over a constable card and you're like, but what about a quiet gathering? Which you're like, no, which helps you get rid of the bad guys, but nobody really wins when that happens. And so you don't want to throw too many duds. I do think that the narrative through line of queer culture, as a queer person, I really enjoyed the dichotomy. So I think there was more than just the gameplay that often kept me intrigued in the game. And that is, again, how much I've been falling in love with thematic games and my personal attention to this game celebrating queer culture. But I can understand that, like, going around the board isn't the most interesting at times. You're collecting cards in a way, you're getting resources to then do a big thing with them. And none of us were the hidden traitor.
We are all too honest. We
I
didn't
was
want
really
to betray our
hoping
community.
someone would, because I was accusing
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. I know. I was hoping I would have been right at one point.
Then you lost, like, how many points? 6 points from that?
I did lose 6 points, and I would have come in second or third.
Instead, you took in 4th?
Maybe 4th. I don't know if I lost.
You definitely lost. You did.
The
first game I played with another group, I was the hidden traitor.
Ooh.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
How dare you?
So it does feel bad because this game is about community and building community. But when we played the first round, like 2 houses got raided. And so an endgame trigger is a house getting raided twice. And because I was the most notorious in reputation, I had taken major indictments in 2 areas. So, like, I was hella getting hanged. Like, you get your cards and you're like, there's no way I can win. I'm either, like, going to lose 12 points at the end of the game or I'm going to die. And that was a really fascinating decision point. In the games we played together, houses didn't get raided till much later on. And so you two had to make a decision whether or not you were going to be traitors. But then I was actively working the whole game to try and get the house that I was closest to like get raided, and that didn't happen. Community atrophy ended up happening, so we all lost. But I was like, oh my god, I'm playing these cards and I'm hoping that nobody comes and finds me, that I'm gonna, like, betray the community. And so you're almost playing a second game, and it felt kind of dirty, but you could see again the narrative through line of, I don't want to die, so I'm gonna betray the people that I care about, and that feels really bad. Which I'm like, whoa, can't believe I felt that in a board game.
That was a part of the game that I thought was interesting. Joe shared. I have just a quick quote to share about the informers. Joe had said that they were worried that that mechanic would turn some people off of the game, but they also said that's a risk that we had to take because it's such an important part of the story. If no one had informed, then they wouldn't have gotten all of this evidence against the Molly houses. They wouldn't have been raided. We wouldn't have gotten all of this information that we've got from all of these court documents.
Yeah, I'm fascinated because you two both got major and minor indictments. Why did you decide not to turn traitor when you had to declare either your loyalty?
Because I had a minor indictment. I wasn't at risk of getting hanged by a dice roll or die
You're like,
roll.
it's bad, but not that
Yeah,
bad.
I was going to lose 6 points at max.
I think on both of mine, I had a pretty good chance of surviving. I also just, like, I didn't have the heart to even try and betray the community. Like, that felt too dirty and a line I could not cross, Angela.
Well, I had a number of times where I had to put out one, and I did have that moment of almost doing it.
Well-
And it was in the game that we played, it was interesting because something happened. I had a card where I put them up face up, but I didn't have to play the good one. I could have played the informant, but I didn't know the game well enough to be able to know what that would trigger and how that would affect things. But in a 3-player game that we played, I really was on the edge of whether or not I should do that because none of us, it's the 4 of us have done that together, and I think it would be a fun surprise.
It's like bidding 0 on a trick.
I know. I'll lose immediately. But talking about the theme of this game and having a game that feels thematic, I think this game felt more thematic than almost any other game that we've played. And I don't know if it was the related banter or just kind of imagining ourselves to be just observing this firsthand or being at these parties or throwing these parties. But there was something that I just felt like it really brought my imagination out and really thinking about what this experience was. And I really liked that.
The board feels like a vehicle to be able to host parties. Like the
that's a
board
good point.
doesn't feel like a major part of the game to me. It just kind of determines when you're going to be able to take an action depending on where you can go.
Yeah, I certainly looked at it as a vehicle to get more cards.
To throw parties.
To throw parties, right? Or there is, and this is what I would say is the sticking point that I did not love about this game. And I think it goes back to kind of, at times, what I feel like is maybe Cole's design aesthetic, although I'm sure he would say not, is a little bit finicky around the rule set. And reputation was a really hard concept to get. When were you, so reputation is something that you get because on your own personal player board, you can play a card, and if it's a Molly, which is a queen or a jack, anytime you play a card of a matching suit, you'll gain points. You'll get 3 points or 2 points. If you have the same suit as Jack and Molly, you'll get 5. So I think the first game we played together, I watched Gillian storm up the board by getting a bunch of reputation. What's hard about that is at different times during the game, you can be exposed, right? That means a constable or a rogue card has come up and it's been discarded into the gossip pile, which means the most infamous of that suit is now exposed, right? You've gone into a dark alley a few too many times and everybody knows your name. And so you have to discard those, but you get permanent reputation. And that can never be discarded. And permanent reputation is good because at times you'll score points or you'll get cards, but it's bad because if a house is raided, you're more inclined to get major or minor indictments if you have the most reputation. And it's also not great because if you have the most, then there are other times where you may have to discard cards. And so that could be finicky. And certainly the last time we played, I hadn't refreshed myself as often. So Becky was helping being like, oh, this is when we discard and this is when we don't. And while the player aid is good, I still was often confused about the exact time that you would be using, oh, you're exposed. Okay, well, is it all of the players? Okay, well, it depends what card. So I thought there was just a little finickiness in that slowed the game down to have to keep checking and being like, okay, wait, what do we do here? Okay, wait, what do we do? And so that was a part that I wish could have been smoother.
How long is the gameplay of this game?
It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
For 4-player?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I was going with that.
I think that at the essence being a card game, that is a long time to play. And I also felt that way with Arcs, which is another similar card game centered action, but with other movements and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting to think about it. I definitely liked this game. I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome with me, even at the longer time. I do wish that I didn't think about like, oh, I just like the card playing component, and then it would have been nice to have like more opportunities to do that in the game, but I liked it.
Yeah, I certainly liked it. I don't know, and this is the hard part for me. I'm headed off to, this can sound weird. I'm headed off to like gay adult summer camp for 4 days. And I've been debating whether or not to bring Molly House with me. I think thematically it's really on point, right? Like, I think it tells an amazing story. You don't see queer representation in games. And also ... I don't know that I would love teaching this, right? Because of the reputation mechanic, and also because I feel like for some of Cole Wehrle's designs, you love them or you hate them, right? You super love Root, or maybe you don't. Or you super love Arcs, or maybe you don't. And I also don't sometimes feel like I'm smart enough for Cole Wehrle's games, which is why I'm really glad that Joe Kelly was like, girl, I got you. So I don't know. This is a hard one for me. Like I it's never leaving my collection. Like that's not happening. But I don't know when I'm going to play it next.
I'll play it with you.
Okay.
I mean, you'll play it with us, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe some other friends.
Yeah, it's almost like I want you to play combo.
I mean, our other board game group, which Angela and I have talked about, is like lighter games, did really like combo.
Mm-hmm.
This might be an appropriate step with that.
Yeah, it's almost like if I could explain the reputation easier.
I don't understand the reputation that well. Yeah.
I would say the thing that confused me about it, the reputation, but also the, what do you call it? The safe pile and then the
gossip
pile. Those confuse me about when like the constables go into which pile. I felt like that was a little confusing to me, so I never quite understood it. That was just a gap in my understanding.
Yeah,
but...
I asked every time on that because I did not understand that either.
Yeah, it was really Becky and I being like, no, safe. No, gossip. And I do say that this game brings a lot of tension. Like, you just mentioned that, but one of my favorite parts is actually the end of the round where we take the gossip pile and you discard 1/3 rounded up of the gossip pile. And then I'm like, oh, what's going to come out? Like, are we going to get in trouble? Have we been naughty? And
there's such celebration when you don't get in trouble.
Well, and also... I don't know how you three have been able to read the mind of the pile, because every time, well, maybe not Becky, but Gillian and Reed would always select the pile that had the worst cards, like the constables and the rogues. And those are used as multipliers. So for every card that comes out that matches the suit of a specific constable, you would have to take 4 pieces that go onto a piece of evidence that goes onto a house. Well, at one point, we had 8 pieces of evidence, and 7 is what gets a house rated. But so often, you two would pick the pile, and we were like, whoa, cool. But it also meant that houses didn't get rated, so we weren't as in trouble as often.
Oh, I was going to say, like, a betrayer would want
I was thinking that.
I was never a betrayer, Becky.
Yeah, because the houses weren't being rated.
Let me tell you, when you're the betrayer, you're actively trying to put those cards into the gossip pile. It is an entirely different game.
Okay, so I couldn't play that because I don't understand how the cards go.
Correct.
I mean, you were basically doing that with the card you were using because it made you discard the first card in the
true.
row and put it
that
into
was
the
so
gossip.
sus.
This was a game that really pushed me to think about yes, there's community joy, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, I want to win. Like, what am I going to do? You know? And I'm not usually that mean, but I was like, this is going to be self-serving to me. I'm going to get 4 points from this. I'm going to throw you all under the bus.
No, Reed, what I love about this game, though, is that you're not actually throwing us under the bus because when you throw a party, the community will automatically play 2 cards into the set, and then whoever throwing the party throws 2 cards in, and then everyone else gets to choose. My favorite part is Reed being like, actually not even just Reed, everybody at this table being like, so I could score 4 points, or the community could score 4 points, and all y'all selfish. So many times you were like,
Becky did
No, that
choose
was
the
Becky
community
and Reed.
ones.
I didn't
Okay.
do that.
Also, sometimes the community is selfish.
I always lose board games because I try and find my moral compass within like being a kind player. And
No,
As
you
I
always
consider
go
being a
against the grain
betrayer.
and do what you're not supposed to do, Reed.
which is score points or joy.
Well, also during that, like, I think kind of in that same moment, you all were pretty far ahead and I was behind in that 4-player game and the community was not doing well. So I had thrown a party where I could have scored the community cards, but I was like, why should I? All of you are way far ahead of me. Like, you guys need to do the work with the community too, and I need to catch up. So I'm scoring my cards, not the community cards.
yeah, it's so funny being selfish, right?
Well, I threw a party and Angela scored 10 points, and I don't think I got
Oh my
any
God.
points off of it.
Okay,
Ugh.
this speaks to the point that is very fun, which Gillian made of like the card play is like the funnest part. If you throw the party, it doesn't mean you're gonna score points, right? You might score 1 point, or maybe if you're lucky, but you can also score 0, or maybe you'll score like 7. Depends on your reputation. But what I really loved about this is Reed would be like, guys, what if we like had a party with a fancy fellow who did this or this? And then the community would play a card, and then me and Becky would hijack the party, and we would basically phase Reed out of scoring any points. It was amazing.
I also felt bad though.
No, I
Did you?
didn't. No,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
I mean,
No, I
it is-
did.
It is interesting. It has this element of. This is going to be weird when I say it, but it has this element of poker where I might lead and think that I am going to determine this is going to be how this hand plays out. But if the hands on the, or if the cards on the board
Flop, yeah.
are better than what I brought, then that's what scores. And so I actually had no control over you all taking over my parties.
Yeah, and I think this played out because what I find really fun is you're playing them out and everyone thinks it's going one way, and then say somebody pulls a card out and somebody else is like, oh, well, maybe we're having a surprise ball, right? You don't think so, and then you're like, all of these cards line up. How great. And you really screw somebody over. It's often Reed. We screwed Reed a lot.
Gillian a little bit.
Just a little.
It was mostly Reed.
Yeah, it was mostly Reed.
Thanks, friends. Question mark.
Yeah, I like this game, I think, a lot more. It was my joy game twice, so I'm like, this is great. Am I gonna read the rules more? Maybe.
No.
I would like to watch a video
There's
on
a
the
few.
reputation.
Why have we not watched a video for this game?
I don't know. I think Angela did a good job teaching it.
Yeah, but what happens is if you try and play it offhand, it leads to a rockier experience, and so that makes it hard. It's like Root.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if I was gonna try and play Root, I'd be like, oh God, this is very hard. You can't just pick it up and play.
I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can play Root on Saturday. I think that I benefited from learning this game and then playing it within the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was fresh in my mind. And, I obviously didn't get all of it, but I remembered it enough to be able to feel like I could pick up and play it.
I think an interesting way to end this podcast is one of the kind of final thoughts Joe had in their interview. They said, I hope this kind of comes across. I want people, after they've played it, or maybe in the moment, reflect on their own life. Are there times that they have been offered similar bargains, and how did they react to it? I feel there's obvious parallels with the trans-exclusive moment, especially within the queer community of people who seem to want to get on the good side of some very right-wing people and will throw trans people under the bus in order to do so. That feels like a very similar bargain to me.
Thank you for listening to Board Game Homies. If you have just as much joy as we do, drop us a line on Instagram, Blue Sky, or Board Game Geek at Board Game Homies. Bye-bye.
On the
Board
next
Game Homies
episode,
is now over.
it's now Paul Denon and Cy Pip.
And Angela.
It's just Angela being like, and this is what Paul Denon says.
It's just two socks that I've like drawn faces
On your YouTube channel?
Yeah. That
I would watch that YouTube channel.
Also,
I know you
the
would.
banner is misized, so it like doesn't load right.
No, you don't
Too soon,
you
Angela.
don't understand.